You ready, John?
Yeah, what do I do?
Read the fucking
Radio
copy.
Free Hollywood. Radio Free Hollywood.
For uncensored news, millions of Eastern Americans switch on Radio Free Hollywood, the new sound from outside. This is Radio Free Hollywood.
During World War II, Hollywood's most glamorous stars were working in a converted aircraft hangar making training films. Somehow, Clark Gable got his head stuck in a mock airplane cockpit and had to be cut out with a saw, ruining his famous mustache. Upon being freed from the cockpit, he immediately asked for a mirror to check the damage, at which point he may or may not have said, "Frankly, Scarlett, I'm just glad I wasn't stuck in a kayak." Did we write that?
Welcome. Yes, I did. Yes, I wrote it.
Oh my God.
Why is that bad?
Stuck in a kayak?
Don't you get it? Stuck in a kayak. He got his head stuck in the cockpit and they cut it out with a saw and they wrecked his mustache. If he was in a kayak, he would be sitting in the kayak. And if they cut him out with a saw, they might damage something else.
Oh, boy, that was a long way to go for me to understand that joke.
Well, hopefully our audience is a little more mind in the gutter.
Frankly, my dear, I'm glad I didn't enter that cockpit ass first.
Okay. In real time,
that cuts to the joke.
He's rewriting the joke.
No, I didn't know if he actually said that or if we wrote that. Because if we wrote that, I was like, I'm not sure I get it.
Will, did you get it?
It took me a second, but I did get there a little bit before John.
Okay, well, all right, okay. All right, moving on. Welcome to Radio Free Hollywood.
He has to say that. He works for you. You pay him.
I know. My name's on his check. He's my only sycophant.
I think.
Oh my God!
I think. Look, the joke was written beautifully. It was the delivery that was really the problem.
That's it. I'll own up to that. If anybody could sue it to somebody who hasn't heard it and get a laugh.
Okay. Yeah. Welcome to Radio Free Hollywood. I'm Steve Jacob.
I'm John Kassir.
And yeah, we're off and running already. This week we're going to talk about we're going to talk about the LA ICE protests and Governor Newsom's one of his responses to it, which I think is great. We're going to talk about the
Did
Texas.
Did it involve a kayak?
Shut up. We're going to talk about how the Texas House passed their tax incentive bill for the state of Texas. Luckily, it sucks. But there is a caveat in it that makes it actually kind of good. So we'll talk about that. But first, we're going to talk about me.
Man.
Yeah, we're going to talk about why we haven't been recording podcasts for the last 2 months, and that
because evidently Steve did back his way into a cockpit.
And I had to be cut out of it.
Oh my God!
Yeah, no.
I'm so sorry, man. I'm so
sorry.
Thanks.
I'm going to give you the broad strokes for anybody who gives a shit. I collapsed on a plane on my way to London, and by the time I got to the hospital in London, a lovely hospital, the University College Hospital, I recommend it highly. The doctors are very good. I had 12% kidney function, and they told me, I don't know. I don't know if you're going to make it. I did. And the cause of that was a prostate problem. My big, beautiful prostate was actually ultra big.
See, I got that. My big, beautiful prostate. I got that.
Good.
Can you still hear me all right?
Yeah, we hear you fine.
Okay, great.
So, long story short, and this is kind of a long story anyway, but I'll keep telling it. They catheterized me, which for those of you that have never been catheterized, I suggest you find ways not to be catheterized. And they drained a liter and a half of fluid from my kidneys, which were twice the size that they normally
Oh
should
my
be. They
God.
got toxic, and I was just a couple hours from fatal toxic kidney failure. But they got me in time and put me back on a plane, and I got back to LA with my lovely catheter, and I had to keep it in until I had surgery. I had the surgery 3 weeks ago. The surgery went really well. The problem was my prostate was growing into my bladder, and they had to correct that. And when I was in flight at 36,000 feet, my urethra just closed, which is how I ended up getting so backed up. So I'm fine now. That's why we haven't been around. I'm kind of making my way back into life again. I'm 3 weeks through a 6-week recovery, but I'm through the worst part. So here I am.
Yeah, thankfully, Steve. Thankfully, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you see what going up and down in an airplane does to a water bottle full of water, how
Yeah.
it collapses and stuff, you go, what must that do to it? Because anytime
It's
we're
true.
landing, I may have just gone to the bathroom when they tell you, all right, get your tray tables and your seats up in the proper position. As I'll go to the bathroom because I know as the flight descends and that bottle crushing thing is making me have to go to the bathroom. So,
Right.
I mean, going up would do the opposite, obviously. And wow, we're glad you're here.
Yeah, thanks. No, I was really having trouble on that flight. They actually, I was pretty impressed. We were over the Atlantic, so they couldn't like divert and land anywhere. The choice was push him out the exit door or go on to London. Luckily, they went on to London because I wouldn't have been able to resist them if they decided to push me out the door. No, they were real good. They talked to doctors on the ground that they have on call all the time for flights, which I was unaware of. They have like a full medical kit on the flight, which they tried a few things. Then they called for doctors on the flight, and Adrian was with me, and we were really impressed that like 4 people like jumped up and came forward like right away, and well, none of them were doctors. And then they called for doctors again.
Call Rotor Rooter, that's
Yeah.
the name. And away goes troubles down the drain.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was 4 doctors, an emergency room doctor, 2 other like general practitioners, and a nurse. And they talk to each other. They talk to the doctors on the ground. Then they picked one doctor to be the lead. And this woman who had incidentally been sitting like right in front of me on the plane, she administered a couple of shots, and the next thing I knew, we were landing in London, where paramedics came on and got me. So, but everybody was
She
cool.
was like, I knew you were having either problems with your prostate or you and your wife were getting randy in the seat behind me. I just couldn't tell.
I just decided to shoot you full of morphine and make you pass out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
No,
Wow,
it was
that's
brutal.
crazy.
It was pretty damn brutal. And the worst part, is I was going to work in London for a week and then go on to like a 3-week vacation in Italy and France. But that part didn't happen. We'll go back in the fall and do that. But,
Yeah.
but anyway, yeah, no.
Well, you had a big birthday. You had a big birthday that you were celebrating.
Well, oh yeah, it was Adrian's 70th birthday. And on her 70th birthday, where were we on her 70th birthday? Because I sent her back to France. We came back to the States, then, we were going to France to see our daughter-in-law's family. She's from Lyon. And her grandfather's this really nice old man named Joseph. And Joseph had been so looking forward to meeting particularly Adrian, who they are Facebook friends. They send each other seeds in the spring for tomatoes, and they have this kind of interesting relationship going, and he had been picking out his clothes for 3 weeks in advance. So I said, you need to get on a plane and go back to France and meet this guy. He's 94 years old, it's like,
Oh, man.
so she did that, and she turned 70 while she was there. And yeah, it was pretty great. So for her, she did a lot of shopping at flea markets, which is a big thing in France. So they had to buy extra suitcases to get all the shit back.
You're not allowed to bring the smelly cheese on the plane.
Yeah, she did anyway.
I know. I did that once, man. We were told we wouldn't get through customs with it. You should have seen us eating an entire block of cheese on the plane.
And didn't crap for a week.
No, but we didn't pass out and wind up in a London hospital either.
Well, that's true. Yes. That's true. Yeah. So, yeah, that's my sad tale. But I'm back and I'm healthy, and I'm very grateful. After you've had the third doctor tell you, "Hey, you almost died," you kind of start to realize, what's important in life. So this will be our last podcast. And no, that is actually.
I figured that out after our first podcast, but here I am.
Here
you know
are.
Why? Because what's important in life is friends, Steve.
Oh, that's what I know.
And I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad you're here too.
And Will's like, I'm glad you're here too, because your name's on my checks.
Yes, exactly. I'm only doing things now that I feel are important, and actually, this is one of them. I think on a lot of levels, we'll kind of get into that. We'll get into our displeasure with what's going on out there, and that's a good segue. And so let's go to the news. Yes, I know this shit makes you crazy, John, and I have tried to make it a little lighter, so you don't spontaneously combust.
I mean, it's really, really disturbing, but it is ridiculous. It's actually ridiculous. I mean, before, well, go ahead, set it up.
I'll set it up. From Deadline, Newsom posts AI-generated videos mimicking Star Wars Emperor Palpatine reading Trump tweets, which I think it's hilarious. Gavin Newsom cast aside subtlety today in his war of words and now lawsuits with President Donald Trump. The California governor's press office posted 2 seemingly AI-generated TikTok videos with a voice that sounds a lot like Star Wars Emperor Palpatine, played by Ian McDiarmid, however you say his name, reading recent military-minded posts from the president related to the unrest in Los Angeles. I think these are hilarious, and they are obviously AI, may have been AI-generated. I mean, come on. Will, are you ready to just give us a taste?
Yeah, we'll give you a taste here.
We made a great decision in sending Vanashiga.
Can you hear that?
The violent
Yes.
instigated riots in California. If we had not done so, Los Angeles would have been completely obliterated. The very incompetent governor, Gavin Newsom, Mayor Karen Barth should be saying, "Thank you, President Trump. You are so wonderful."
Yeah, you're wonderful.
Instead, they choose to lie to the people of California and America by saying that we weren't needed and that these are peaceful protests. Just one look at the pictures and videos of the violence and destruction tells you all you have to know. We will always do what is needed to keep our citizens safe, so we can together make America great again.
Oh my God. It's so on the nose that it's
I know.
it's
It's
unbelievable.
Like somebody got promoted for coming up with that. I'll tell you right now.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, it really. I love it when you can make a piece of art that really not only mimics what's going on in a not literal sense, but has the underside of being also kind of literal. And I think this is great because satire goes a long way. And I don't know how this is doing on TikTok, but I hope it's like I think it's viral at this point, but I don't know. It's pretty great. Um, yeah, this whole stupid thing.
Well, it's, you know, I don't normally get into these conversations with like old high school buddies or whatever back east that are, have doubled down on on their Trump vote. And I always say to them, you know what, you guys follow who you got to follow and support who you got to support, but don't sit there and pretend you know what's going on somewhere 2,700 miles away, and because somebody edited together pictures of January 6th and said this is what's happening in LA.
Yeah.
Listen, I literally was like, don't I live right here. I can see what's going on. We have had the gold standard in first response in the world for many years. That may have come down a bit with budget cuts and the economy and that kind of stuff, but still it's up there. They can handle the situation of what was going on. And I go, if you don't recognize this as anything as other than bad politics, you're not paying attention.
Well, I think Jimmy Kimmel put it really well. I heard he said in his monologue, "This is like turning off a smoke detector with a flamethrower."
That's it. It is. And then they go, well, what about what your police chief said? And I send them a video of the police chief, quotes of the police chief saying, this is what we do. We're fine. We're worried about what will happen if they send in this, the Marines and it'll just complicate things to no end. And then, of course, they send his press conference after the fact of it being sent in, of what kind of stuff they're putting up with, the violence that it's incited, and then make it sound like that's why they sent it in, and that's what people will do. Yeah.
Or the violence erupted because they overreacted to it. When you send in troops, people
that's what I'm
might
saying.
just get violent.
That's what I'm saying. But the people that I was having this discussion with, posted that after I posted what the police chief said about how how he thought this would become a difficult situation. And they go, yeah, well, look, he said this. And I was like, I'm not even going to have a discussion with you because you're taking something out of context and moving it to make your point, and you're not even here.
I see. Here's I don't know. Here's the issue with this. If you start putting military in the streets, because this is not going to be the first protest like this. No. It's going to happen everywhere.
Yeah.
It's already happening in New York.
Yeah, and if I may interject, it's going to, he's not going to send in troops to Texas. He's not going to send in troops to places where there's a lot of Hispanic people who will be protesting like this, but where he gets a crap load of his votes. He's not going to do that.
He may or may not. I don't know. Here's my point. My point is we're headed towards a Kent State situation where some National Guard just sort of go rogue for a minute and they cause a tragedy. And for those of you that weren't around in the 60s, Kent State was a protest that the students were protesting against the escalating violence in Asia, where we were fighting in Vietnam, and Richard Nixon decided to open a front in Cambodia, even though he said he would never do that. He did anyway. There were massive student protests. They did burn down the ROTC building at Kent State, but the next day, the National Guard showed up And as they were leaving, a couple of them turned around and decided to start firing into the crowd. And
With live ammunition,
with
not
live
rubber
ammunition,
bullets,
not rubber bullets, live ammunition.
not pepper balls, not
Exactly.
bang flash grenades, live bullets, ladies and
And
gentlemen.
most of the people that actually got hit weren't protesters. They were people like going to class and stuff, or people like way in the back, just sort of observing what was going on. They weren't even protesting. And it just turned into a national tragedy. Did it help sentiments against the war? Yes, it did. Did it help turn public opinion against the war? Yes, it did. But there's like a similarity, and Nixon said, "Oh, well, those people were all bums," you know. It's like he did like the same kind of crap, and we need to learn from history, or it repeats itself. And history is right now just repeating itself. But I'm not sure whether we're repeating the uprisings of the 60s or whether we're repeating 1930s Germany. And, you know, it's a little bit of both, unfortunately.
Well, you have to take into consideration the hypocrisy of it and who's in control. And
Yeah.
the fact that who's in control can, you know, I don't see how anybody who has a brain in their head could possibly not consider themselves a hypocrite by having a negative opinion about what's been going on here in terms of protest. I'm not talking about where the violence has escalated to. Starting out as protests, even though it did escalate to violence, when January 6th started
Right.
out as violence with no protest, just violence. And it wasn't against standing in the street and then having somebody shoot rubber bullets at you and then getting violent. It was people wanting to take down the government.
Right.
And then for that, you know, the same administration that's in there now that instigated this, and putting some of those people back out on the street with no regard for the people who died, the people who were hurt.
Exactly.
The
And
destruction.
if you recall, John,
Yeah.
well, that was the Republican line after that January 6th attack on the Capitol was, "Oh, it was just a peaceful protest," you know. And now their line is, "Oh, they're rioting in the streets in Los Angeles." I think they got their scenes switched.
Yeah.
Because January 6th looked pretty damn violent to me. I mean, people died, and it's like, and
I
quite
was
frankly,
watching yesterday I was watching the news just to put in something into perspective in the middle of what you're saying, because there were about a dozen protesters blocking a street, and they kept saying it was next to the 101, making it sound like they were blocking a freeway, and they weren't. They were blocking a surface street. And there was about a dozen people. It turned out there were more people they had grabbed and arrested, but it wasn't, an astronomical amount of people. There had to be at least 400 police officers surrounding them, armed. There was police vehicles with, every nose to nose within a mile of the area. And this is the area where things have been going on. And these people, not a single one of them threw a single thing. They stood there, and when they were called to come get handcuffed, they just walked over and let them handcuff them and take them away. And they were peacefully protesting. And so, and they keep showing the same footage of a bunch of people on a bridge throwing a bunch of empty police, bottles and
Yeah, I
bottle
know.
rockets stuff to a bunch of police
Cop cars.
cruisers that were underneath a bridge. And that's heinous. But they make it sound like that's happening all over Los Angeles.
And that wasn't part of the protest, by the
No.
way. If
No.
you notice, it's just a couple of people like vandalizing cop cars.
Yeah, there's a guy with a Russian flag on his back that was videotaping it. It's
Oh,
like,
man.
it's
Well,
like,
there you go.
It's like there's things going on. But the point is, this is nothing compared to things that have gone on here that this state has taken care of on a regular basis. And to say, Oh, LA would have burned. I mean, he literally said LA would have burned to the ground. People have no idea how vast LA is. And in all their
Right.
posts are like, California's in trouble. They have no idea how big California is. It's at least the size of the entire East Coast. And Los Angeles and the little area where this has been taking place within Los Angeles, not including Los Angeles County, is unbelievable. And I mean, I even have a map, but it's that people just don't understand, and they just jump to conclusions because they want to, and that's because that's
Well,
how we're divided
I,
we are.
I got a problem with mainstream media and like CNN in particular, which, if it bleeds, it leads. And so they look for just those little things that are not what's really going on, but the anomalies within what's really going on.
Yeah,
And they promote the shit out of it. And it until you start thinking that's what's actually happening.
yeah,
And it's not actually happening. I mean, you're out in Agora Hills right now, John.
yeah.
Will and I are in West Hollywood. And no, is there smoke in the sky? No. Are there police cars running around? No. I mean, it's all very calm here. And because this is contained to a couple of city blocks downtown. And and here's why. To your earlier points, John. 1992, the Rodney King riots. I think that the LAPD learned a lot of lessons in those riots, because those riots, they decided,
forget
well,
it.
we'll just let it burn itself out, and it did. It burned all the way up Pico Boulevard, and
Forget
it
it.
crossed into several different townships, and it got out of control. And so this time they're totally on top of it. When you say that there's like a bunch of cops circling the few protesters on the side street next to the 101, that's why this is not going to escalate like Trump is trying to convince everybody it's going to escalate. It's just the way it is. This
Yeah.
is
I think part of his goal is to make it escalate to the point that
Of
I
he
agree.
needs it to escalate to.
Of course,
Mhm.
he's trying to, that's exactly what he's doing. That's why I was saying I didn't think he would do it in places like Texas and stuff, because he wants to make an example of the people that the other people have already demonized. He took an opportunity to jump on California. Plus the fact he knows that Gavin Newsom could be, a major force against his party in the future, and whether he runs for president or not. I mean, he already got every Democratic's, was it governor, across the United States to sign a petition saying, stay out of our state. You don't have a right to come in here and disperse military in our state unless we ask for it. And then somebody even posted a whole conversation with Donald Trump saying, well, they got to follow law. This is from the past. I'm talking about laws. I can't just go into any state I want with military force without, having the governor on board. And you're going, it doesn't surprise anybody, because there's one hypocritical thing after another, just whatever serves that moment. And the thing that just astonishes me, and that I'll never understand, how people will have the facts right there in their face, and they will still fight it as if those facts aren't the facts. It's like social media has given everybody the power to themselves to say, nah, it's not true, because here it is, somebody else wrote it. And it's like,
Mhm.
no, that's actually not fact. And that was the point I made to, my buds back east, that, unless you're here, unless you are paying attention, really paying attention, I don't care what you read. I don't care what you watch on the news to make a point, follow the point that you're talking about, Steve, about the even firsthand news. I mean, what's supposed to be the top news. You know, I don't care what you have. If you're not paying attention and you're not watching what's happening to the actual things and putting together your own idea of it, you have no reason opening your mouth.
Yeah, that's true.
You just don't.
Well, it comes down to, well, there's a couple things, but the thing that jumps to mind is really this is a state sovereignty
It is.
issue. And, the Republican Party has been, I mean, everything from abortion to you name it. The states need to decide. The states need to decide. And all of a sudden, he sees an opportunity to stir the fucking pot. And now the states don't decide, the Fed decides. And it's like, no, you can't have it both ways. This is the state of California, and we do have recourse. The state can turn around and go, if you're going to treat us this way, we're just not going to pay our taxes anymore.
Yeah.
And that is a big deal because that's $80 billion a year that gets then reallocated to mostly
What do
red
they call our
states.
state? Our state is a
Sanctuary state.
No. I'm talking. In terms of how we pay our taxes to the rest of the country. We're Governor Newsom coined it. He didn't coin it. It's an actual term. We're a specific type of state that the taxes we pay are specifically earmarked to help everybody else who can't afford
That's
to
right.
pay that amount to the national budget.
Right.
So because of that, it gives us certain rights within that in terms of how that money goes. So yeah.
Well, I mean, Newsom already said, because they said, well, Newsom should be arrested. And he said, well, great, come arrest me. It's like that's kind of Obi-Wan Kenobi telling Darth Vader, strike me down, Vader, and I'll become more powerful than you could possibly imagine. Because that's exactly what would happen.
Oh, yeah.
He just becomes instant martyr.
No, this poor union leader, they
Oh, yeah, that
I
guy.
mean, they're trying to put federal crimes on the guy.
Yeah,
Speaking
news
out.
cycle.
For
Yeah.
speaking out. And that's the worst part of it. We're all supposed to be able to speak out.
That's right. It's like you can't rob people of their free speech.
It's just.
I don't think things change. I heard a couple days ago there was an ICE raid in some farm fields in Oxnard, which is not far from us, and they pulled a whole bunch of people out. And that means those fields are not getting picked right now. And it means other fields are not going to get picked because the migrant workers are not going to show up, whether they're legal or illegal. They're not going to show up because they're taking everybody.
Nobody here going to take those jobs.
That's right. A red state, all you people who think immigrants are going to take your jobs, well, if you want a job picking strawberries in 105-degree heat, just get on the bus and come and work for below minimum wage. And see how that goes. We got a job for you.
Yeah.
But my point being that these things eventually will raise the cost of goods. And, you won't be able to buy fruit for blueberries are already $20, and it's going to get worse. And where the rubber meets the road is regular people, two income family, it's just getting by. They can't afford inflation to go up by 7.5% or 9% or 10% or 15%. They will get buried. And I certainly hope the Democratic Party uses that fact to their advantage when it really starts to come down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you get these things that pop up, and well, it's only up 2.4% this month. Not
this month.
That's not as bad as we thought. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That's 2.4% from the 4.4% last month, or the 6.4% the month before. It's not like it's just up from last year that amount. It's just like, give me a break. And then they're like, oh, well, 100 and I don't know how many jobs were filled. It was like, yeah, because those people have to work that lost their jobs. And they took jobs that barely pay anything close to what they were getting paid, or even touch the skills that they spent their life honing so that they could have a good job. It's like, what are you talking about? It's just gonna be, hey, listen, you can really, if you want to take history and you just want to break it down and you look at it and you look at what they're trying to do, they're trying to create a class system with no middle class. And that's what
Right.
they've tried to do in the past, and that's how they control everything. And, you know, I don't care whether you have $6 million in your bank account for your retirement and that kind of stuff. It will affect you. You're not in the class of people that will benefit from this situation.
Exactly.
And people are like, oh, well, and then of course the crime rate will go up, and I mean all these things that it affects,
Sure.
that the domino
It's
effect.
dominoes. Yeah.
And they will go, oh, well, and then they'll just go, oh, well, that was because of Biden, or, the next administration that comes in, if it happens to be Democratic, they'll go, yeah, he wasn't, look at it. It's happening now. It's like, no, that actually is happening because of everything that happened this last administration. We're only 125 days in,
I know.
or 120, whatever it is. I'm going, oh my
It's ridiculous.
God. Oh
How are
my
we
God.
John, how are we gonna leg this out?
I'm trying to hide off the grid is really what I try to do.
Yeah. And then we'll come on every 2 weeks or so and
I'm
just
coming to your house for more of your fresh picked pea pods, and
That's right. The garden's coming in.
yeah,
You know?
it's
I hope ICE doesn't come and arrest me because I'm the one in our garden picking. I know I'm a target.
You use Mexican fertilizer for this.
It's coming to that.
No,
Yeah.
I'm going to Mexico this next week for a vacation, and I've some of my guests that are coming with me, friends that we're traveling with, were like, oh, well, my housekeeper was like, don't go, it's going to be dangerous. I was like, not going to be dangerous.
Yeah, not where you're going.
Not where we're going. This is like, those people are the people that are like going, they're not the people that are being directly affected by this. A and B, it's not America.
Yeah, I was talking to Adrian this morning. We were talking about that Canada is now offering for international students to come and do their masters or doctorates in Canada for free. They'll pay all their tuition. I said, what could we go get a master's or doctorate in?
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So
stay away from political science.
Yeah, I have no interest in political science. Maybe AI. Maybe I'll go get some.
No, if I were Harvard and I were some of those places, I would go set up my classes up there and get my international students and send my professors up there to teach those classes and stuff. That's what I would do.
An excellent idea. I hope they're hearing this. Harvard.
It's like, if you can't come to us, we're going to come to you. We're going to send.
That's right.
We're going to send our best classes.
The Crypt Keeper has a plan.
Hey, we'll do it on Zoom.
All right, segue. Let's enough of that.
The students of Harvard are eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people who live there.
We may never get over that.
Oh my God.
Okay, our second news story today is the Texas House passes the bill sweetening film and TV production incentive with high wattage help. If you consider your high wattage help to be Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, yeah, and Billy Bob, sure, okay, yeah, high wattage help. But
hey, they're probably smoking half the weed that's allowed in Texas. So
more than half. The Texas from Deadline, the Texas House officially passed Senate Bill 22 Monday in a move that would boost cash available to $300 million every 2 years for the next decade, starting with the September 1st fiscal year. So $1.5 billion total. That's below the initial biennial $500 million the state Senate signed off on earlier this month, but still a major upgrade in terms of dollars and stability. That's $150 million a year. Okay, it's bullshit money.
2 Netflix series.
Yeah, exactly.
Are they
Exactly.
are they offering above and below the line, or only below the line?
I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that to be eligible, half of your cast and crew needs to be Texas residents.
Okay.
Okay, so there's them. That's them shooting themselves in the other foot. Um, Now, you have to balance this off another fact that's out there that the Texas state has a film fund, which means that they will fund your movie if you they will not only give you a tax incentive, they will give you funding to make your movie. Um, give you funding to make your movie. I think of California Film Fund. So specifically, the independent features can get funded by the state. That's what they do in Europe. That's why we lose so much production to every, especially the UK. They have a state film fund there, and they pay not only some tax incentives, they give you real cash money to make your movie. And that is really what needs to happen in California if we want to turn the tide.
Yeah.
Comments, John?
No, I agree with everything you're saying. It's taken way too long, and we've had this discussion repeatedly that they had a heads up on this 20 years ago. And how long ago was it that Schwarzenegger was governor?
That's a while ago, not 15 years. Well, let's see. There was
Longer than that.
Schwarzenegger, then Jerry Brown, right? Because
Hey
Arnold
Siri,
took
when
over
was
for
Arnold Schwarzenegger
Gray
governor of
Davis.
California?
Arnie took over for Gray Davis. After Arnie, he did a couple
He was
terms.
2003 to 2011.
Right. And then Jerry Brown,
Yeah.
and then Gavin Newsom.
But I'm saying that because before that, people were trying to get
Right.
Sacramento to, put in some tax incentives to keep production here. And that was long before infrastructure grew up in these places like Texas. And I mean, Vancouver was already
Yeah.
getting a bit of it, but other places in Toronto, but other places did not have the infrastructure to support what they now have. And, as a result, Arnold Schwarzenegger being a Republican was put in as governor because they were hoping that he would somehow bridge the gap.
But he did. There were
He
no
tried.
tax incentives before Schwarzenegger.
Right.
And he put one in that I think he could only get like 130 million a year for.
Yeah.
Something
I mean,
like
he
that.
tried his
Late.
damnedest, but they
really did.
laughed at
Well,
him.
even in Texas,
and
they
it wasn't his
went
fault.
they were going for 250 million a year, and they only got 150 million a year. So they have the same problems that California has, but
Yeah.
what they don't have is they don't have the structure where a good part of the lower state is involved in entertainment production.
Yeah.
So there's a responsibility on the side of the state to support that in lean times, not just take the taxes in good times, but to support it in lean times. And it's lean times now. So they have to take extraordinary measures. They need a film fund. They absolutely need to pass the incentives at 750 million a year to kind of restart things. There's other things that need to happen too. I mean, Film LA is a problem, and they need to be restructured as well. Whether they need competition, I wish there was someone else that could bid for that work that would be a little less like the DMV and more like filmmakers, because that's needed. I mean, they're all fine people, fine Americans. But I think that it's one of those things where when you're in an older film hub, the way they do permits and stuff, it kind of morphs over the years and it gets tighter and tighter and tighter, and weird rules come in, or this one does this one
No, it
does
becomes
that.
too much red tape, and
Yeah, that's my point.
they're supposed to lead you through the red tape instead. It's you're not supposed to become like building in safety where you can't build your house
Right.
because you have to jump through hoops for people that are vindictive and, and making you do one thing at a time rather than say, here it is. Okay, I'll take a look. I see this, get it all back to us. You get back to us and you move on. No. Okay, you're done with me. Now you got to go to the guy and talk about your septic. Now you got to go to that guy, and what should take, a couple of months takes a couple of years.
Right, and you get that. And I have to say, your analogy of comparing it to like a building and safety thing is very apt, because I remember when we were building a house, they were holding us up because the paint colors that we had submitted on a board didn't match what was actually going to be the paint colors. It was the same color. It was just somewhat off. But it was like some kind of new person that was taking umbrage with this, and Adrian knew them well enough that she got like a supervisor involved, and he came in. He goes, "Yeah, this isn't a problem." And he just kind of threw it away. But see, that's the kind of thing. Like new people come in and they have their own ideas, and they're trying to make a mark. And I get that. And this is decades of that happening. That's how you end up with Film LA being almost intransigent, is what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Will, you're nodding a lot here. What's your view on this? Nodding a lot here.
I agree strongly with you. Basically, like I've dealt with Film LA quite a bit, and at this point, I would rather just like try and get away with a shotgun crew instead of actually trying to set up a real shoot. Just because like the permitting is insane. I mean, it's like it should not be easier to have a full weight crew in any other state than to have a 5-person crew on the street here.
Yeah.
And so it's just nuts. And I see a lot of the stuff too coming out of Europe of like how they fund independent film there, and it just seems like such an obvious win for everybody involved. It's like because you are funding something that is like enriching culture, but I know nobody cares about that. But it also like it ultimately keeps people employed. It creates jobs. It does all that kind of stuff, and like particularly with AI and stuff like that coming out now, there needs to be more state intervention to provide those low-level jobs that are going away, like those starter productions and stuff like that are going to be taken over by AI. It's like if you want people to still make those, the state is going to have to intervene. And particularly right now, I'm with you. It's like it seems so short-sighted to not be supporting entertainment completely right now, because it is,
especially
it's not just jobs. It is. Los Angeles has, for the last 100 years, has been the most effective messaging communications platform that's ever. I mean, other than maybe Fox News, but like Hollywood has exported views and culture better than anybody else in the history of the planet has ever done it. And it's like we have that right now. But if that goes to Texas, culture shifts with that move. And so I'm just I hope that Newsom can and the rest of California can figure out something to.
He's trying.
I
mean, you have to, I mean, you're right. It's not only the entertainment business, but all the other industries that were attracted here by our industry, and that survive off of it. It's funny, in every conversation, people will go, dry cleaners alone, and you're sitting there going, dry cleaners, and you go like, yeah, they stay open 24 hours so they can get costumes to the different studios and stuff, and people are like, oh, and I go, that's a lot of money. You don't think it is, but it's a lot of money. It's a lot of tax dollars. And here we have a culture where people would understand it enough, although they don't up north, because it's competitive with Silicon Valley and farmers and that kind of stuff. Yeah. They don't have an empathy for what's happening when people down here know that it's all based on the entertainment industry. I wonder what it's like in Texas with most of the people who are not in the industry, who would have no idea of the industry, what they think about it in terms of them giving those tax breaks and that kind of thing to them.
I mean, It's like I talk to people who work in Texas and stuff like that, and they say it's like it is crazy. Like they'll like I've talked to people like production managers, like I hire somebody for catering and they just don't show up. Like they don't call or anything like that. They just
Right.
because there's no culture for it. Like there's not.
Yeah.
That's a very immature culture where people their whole
Yeah.
living those caterers are doing weddings mostly probably is their business. Where in LA the caterers that do the film industry, that's what they do. They don't do weddings. They don't do anything else. They just serve the film community.
Or makeup, same thing. It's like it's real hit or miss if anyone's going to show up, that sort of thing.
No, I hear you. And people who aren't in the industry are like we've heard many times from up north. Well, why should we give it to a bunch of rich people who are, trying to make art and blah, 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 blah. And you're going, it's attached to every business you could possibly imagine. So people who are involved in it understand it. I got to think that them using celebrities to try to promote it in Texas may be shooting themselves in the foot too.
Well, there's a hypocrisy there.
Yeah, what do we care about? Those guys are rich. What do we care about giving them tax breaks?
Yeah, but when you talk about let's
well, that's what they
I'll just mention.
That's why they pick a couple of good old actor good
Yeah,
old
no,
boys
but Woody
to promote it.
Harrelson moved to Los Angeles, okay, and he managed to get into Cheers. All right, that made him. But where did he get into it again? Los Angeles. He's biting the hand that made him. And okay, I get it. Split loyalties between where he's from and what made him. I get that, but and in that little stupid ad they made, it just made it sound like we're we're the enemy, like L.A. Hollywood is the enemy, and we're not. Both those guys got made in Hollywood. Billy Bob got made. Well, Billy Bob more in Hollywood and New York, but it's like I get it, but come on, guys, come on. And you only ended up getting 150 million a year, so proof's in the pudding. It's like they're not ready for you in Texas yet, but they do have a film fund, and we need a film fund.
Yeah.
Absolutely need a film fund.
Yeah.
That's kind of it for this week. We could go on railing against everything, but
what machine would we have to rail against next week then?
Yes, well, this will probably be the same one, but there'll be different crimes.
Yeah, there'll be other examples of mind-boggling hilarity.
Yes, exactly. So the words of wisdom going forward. I don't know. Just kind of hang on. Just hang on, folks.
You have a long life ahead of you and an even longer death.
Oh. Yeah. And good night.
This has been Radio Free Hollywood.
Radio Free Hollywood.